Warning: the following content may not be suitable for all listeners and contains crude humor that may be offensive to some. Listener discretion is advised. This is Satire is Not Dead. Hello everybody, I am Harvey, and I'm your host, and we're back with more personal stories, satirical articles, and some real news that could be mistaken for satire. This program is brought to you by Cinescape Media. You can learn more about this program and their other programs by visiting their website, cinescape.media. This week it's gonna be a little bit different, and also last week was just a bit out of my format, I guess you could say, but there's so much disarray in this country that I wanted to talk about something that not too many people remember because it was a long time ago, but it's also it's still happening right now. And what I'm talking about is something called push polling. It was a method of aggressive campaigning. I don't think the guy invented it or started, but he used it to his advantage a great deal. The guy was Harvey Leroy Atwater. He was an American political consultant and strategist for the Republican Party. He was advisor to U.S. Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush and chairman of the Republican National Committee. He aroused controversy through his aggressive campaign tactics. And what push polling is an interactive marketing technique most commonly employed during political campaigning. And this is what they would do, hypothetically speaking, because of all of the pedophilia and these scandals, sex scandals going on nowadays. I'll just make up an example of what push polling is. Let's say someone calls you and they tell you they want to ask a few questions for a political poll. And what they would do is ask you some really general questions. Then they might say something like, if you believe candidate X, I'll just say X because I don't want to put a name in there. If you believe candidate X was accused of molesting a child, would you be more likely or less likely to vote for them? And it doesn't have to be true. So even if you don't even answer, if you hang up on them or whatever, if you engage in that ridiculous conversation, when the phone call ends, what they've done is planted that seed in their mind that may make them second guess if they're going to vote for that person or not when they actually go to vote. And it doesn't work on everyone, but it does work, and it was used very aggressively in the 80s. And I don't even hear that phrase push polling anymore. But it's funny, I'm 52 years old and I've never been called to engage in a political poll. And if you watch the news, there's polls coming out every day. I'm like, who are they calling and when do they have time to get all this information together? My point of bringing this up is that because of our level of technologies, our instant access to entertainment, instant access to news, everything, especially with social media and the major mass media, is push polling. And a lot of people don't realize it, that there's stuff being said and put on social media and done just to try and sway people from voting a certain way. And it's not only for elections. This is something that's implemented in pushing a belief system or be more accepting of, just for lack of anything, I can't think of anything, but promoting the gay agenda, which doesn't really bother me, but the fact that someone is taking the time to push it and keep putting it out there and trying to make it more normal. And I apologize for using the word normal like they're not normal. Having said that, one example, I've been watching social media and I came across, I'm not going to say the name of the person, but it's a real post. It's just that I don't have their permission to do it, and I don't want to violate anyone's privacy, even though they did put it on social media. But someone tweeted, "It's hard to write this. I'm a lifelong Republican who worked at RNC and for 2 GOP presidents. But our country is in such deep trouble with lives at stake that it's time for a change. I'm joining at 43 Biden in voting for at Joe Biden. I hope other like-minded GOP will join me." You can't tell me, you can't make me believe that there are real conservative Republicans who think that Joe Biden is the better choice. The man can't survive, get through 10 minutes of being on camera without stumbling with his own words. I don't accept that's the better choice. There's no way that a conservative can think that socialist policies are the better choice than what we have now. I just don't accept it. I mean, the Joe Biden that we've seen in the last few years put his hands on young girls during public ceremonies, whisper in their ear like the creep that he is. You're going to tell me that's the better choice? I mean, it's too bad that we live in a time where every election is considered choosing the lesser of two evils. But there's no way I'd vote a guy in office with those kind of tendencies. And who knows what he is when there's no cameras pointing at him, Which brings me to something else that's being pushed and trying to be normalized. And that's this whole pedophilia problem in this world. It's not just the United States. There was a lecture put on, and this, I think, was a couple of years old, but a lot of people have seen it. A lot of people have been disgusted by it. But I'm going to play a clip. Hopefully it won't get a strike on YouTube. But I want you to hear what's going around right now. What's being pushed, what's being forced on us, that we need to start accepting. You're listening to Merjav Hein, actually from Germany, so I probably butchered the name, but it's the best I can do. Somber silence.
Let me tell you about Jonas. Jonas is 19 years old. He studies law in Munich. In his spare time, he likes to play soccer. Jonas has a secret which he thinks he cannot share with anyone, not even with his best friend or with his parents. He's just too afraid of anger, rejection, and repulsion. Jonas knows that he has to suppress his sexual drive for his entire life. And he also knows that there will never be a loving and fulfilling partnership that he can enter. Because Jonas is a pedophile. He's only attracted to female children between the ages of 6 and 12 years. But since he's aware of the consequences for the children, he has never given in to his sexual drive. What is pedophilia? And what is it not? In the ICD-10, the International Classification System for illnesses, pedophilia is coded as the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children. It is listed under the sexual disorders. Whether the persistent occurrence of sexual thoughts and feelings for pre-adolescent children have been acted upon or not is not relevant to the diagnosis. Like every other sexual orientation, pedophilia can have different characteristics. For example, it can be heterosexual, it can be homosexual, bisexual. Some pedophiles are exclusively attracted to children. Others are not exclusively attracted to children, but they're also sexually interested in adults. But their main sexual interest lies within children. Only if this main sexual interest is given, we talk about pedophilia. The vast majority of all pedophiles are men, about 99%. Within the male population, 1 to 2% are considered to be pedophiles. This translates to about 60 million people worldwide. This is as much as the population of Italy or of South Africa. Therefore, pedophilia is not an irrelevant phenomenon we can't simply ignore. Chances every one of you knows at least one pedophile are higher than that you don't know anyone.
Bullshit.
We haven't found out yet why pedophilia occurs. There are biological, social, and psychological factors to it. It occurs unrelated to socio-economical status and unrelated to educational level. So generally speaking, anyone could be born a pedophile. It is crucial to understand the difference between pedophilia and child sexual abuse, which is illegal and must always be. Pedophilia is only the sexual preference for pre-adolescent children. The difference between child sexual abuse and pedophilia becomes very obvious when we look at scientific studies. Think about it for yourself. What do you think? What percentage of child molesters are pedophiles? Have a guess. Is it 20%, 40, 60, maybe even 80%? In fact, scientific studies indicate that only 20 to 30% of all child molesters are pedophiles.
Don't care.
The vast majority of perpetrators are not pedophiles, but they're sexually interested in adults. Children can easily become victims of child sexual abuse because of their loyalty and because of ease of access. For example, a stepfather might abuse his stepdaughter because he feels anger or jealousy towards her mother. Not every pedophile abuses children, and not everyone who abuses children is a pedophile. Differentiating between these two groups is essential.
Not right.
Let me be very clear here. Abusing children is wrong without any doubt.
Oh, good. Thank
But
you.
a pedophile who doesn't abuse children has done nothing wrong. I want to quickly summarize where we are at the moment. According to current research, pedophilia is an unchangeable sexual orientation, just like, for example,
Not true.
heterosexuality.
Where does this broad live?
No one chooses to be a pedophile. No one can cease being one.
It's not a sexual orientation. That's what they're trying to push. They're trying to make us believe that it is a I was born this way thing. And once we accept that, the next step is saying that it's okay to date children, people who have those tendencies to date those types of children. I'm telling you, that's where it's going.
The difference between pedophilia and other sexual orientations is that living out this sexual orientation will end in a disaster. So let's think about Jonas again. How can we help him not to cause such a disaster? How can we help him not to live out his sexual urges? In fact, scientific studies indicate that one of the strongest predictors for child sexual abuse committed by pedophiles is social isolation. People who can't tell anyone that they're pedophiles logically won't get any help. For example, they can't tell their friends that they can't go to the beach because children in swimsuits might be there as well. They can't get support for situations they might not control entirely. And they can never be completely frank with someone else. We can make a difference for Jonas. We, as a society, can be there for him.
You see, a few years ago, I had to take a sociology 101 course, and this is a major aspect in sociology. They purport that we as an entire society are responsible for the people with these kinds of problems, criminals, and that they believe that we as a society can solve the problem by all working together somehow, but what bugs me is that there's no personal responsibility attached to this, belief or whatever you want to call it.
At the moment, we live in a world that already excludes pedophiles because of their preference alone. Someone who's lonely and excluded from society has little to lose and is at much higher risk to commit a crime, like, for example, child sexual abuse. We can make Jonas feel that he stays a valuable member of our society, although he's a pedophile. Right now, most of us feel discomfort when we think about this scenario.
And you should.
And most of us feel discomfort when we think about pedophiles.
And you should.
But just like pedophiles, we are not responsible for our feelings. We do not choose them. But we are responsible for our actions. And we must make a decision. It is in our responsibility to reflect and to overcome our negative feelings about pedophiles and to treat them with the same respect we treat other people with.
Sorry, no.
We should accept that pedophiles are people who have not chosen their sexuality and who, unlike most of us, will never be able to live it out freely if they want.
I certainly hope so, but there's a hell of a lot of them that are living it out and following through and acting on what these supposedly this natural sexual orientation is. Idiot.
To lead an upright life. We should accept that pedophilia is a sexual preference, a thought, a feeling, and not an act.
There it is. That's the whole theme of this ridiculous lecture. We should accept, and she said it many times, we should accept. This is where we're headed. It's, honestly, it's frightening.
We should differentiate between child sexual abuse and pedophilia.
There's no difference.
We shouldn't increase the suffering of pedophiles by excluding them, by blaming and mocking them.
No.
By doing that, we increase their isolation and we increase the chance of child sexual abuse.
What do you think jail is? It's isolation, you knucklehead.
Only if they make themselves recognizable, because they're not afraid of punishment, of anger and rejection. Can we better understand the causes of pedophilia, and we can improve their treatment? We can help them accept their sexuality and help them learn to refrain from acting on their sexual urges which cause harm to children. We can encourage them never to commit child sexual abuse. We can help them refrain from entering dangerous situations they might not control entirely. And we can prescribe medication.
What?
This approach has already been successful.
When? Where?
In the last 10 years, more than 9,500 people have received help in a prevention network called Kein Täter werden, which means don't offend in English, at university hospitals in Germany. The last survey shows that 98% have never committed child sexual abuse.
How do you follow that?
Unfortunately, this program is not gonna eradicate child sexual abuse, but it is the first step in the right direction. Pedophiles who have received treatment have a better understanding of who they can turn to in order to prevent abuse before it happens. Most of you might ask themselves now, why is she telling us that? 5 years ago, I first heard about Jonas's life. Prior to that, I have never really thought about pedophilia, and I had just adapted the prevalent societal view about it without never really questioning it. I felt anger and disgust about pedophiles. My perspective has been completely changed
Of course it has.
by hearing Jonas's story, hearing about his cruel fate, and understanding the difference between child sexual abuse and pedophilia.
There's no difference.
As a medical student with a background in psychology, I feel it as my responsibility to help others overcome and escape wrong stigmatization and to have a positive impact on our future society. By changing our view about pedophilia as a society,
There it is.
and by offering them support and therapy, we can help millions of people to live better lives, and we can effectively reduce child sexual abuse.
There. Problem solved.
No one is responsible for their feelings, but everyone is responsible for their actions. I thank you very much.
Shut it. Wouldn't it be great if a minigun popped up out of the stage and started mowing ghouls down? And say, keep clapping, keep smiling, enabling things you... And one to limp on. That was a TED Talk, one of those TED Talk lectures at the University of Würzburg in Germany. And this girl, I have to say, I call her a girl because she looks very young. She looks like she doesn't have the life experience to really speak into something like this, and it really just pisses me off. Now, let's go back a few years. I don't know what year exactly this documentary was made. It was called Chicken Hawk, Men Who Love Boys. And it featured an organization called NAMBLA. NAMBLA. It's an acronym that stands for North American Man-Boy Love Association. And the guy they focused on in the documentary his name is Leyland Stevenson. And he goes through this documentary. He explains how, what their whole point of view on it, which I don't really care. But at the end of the documentary, he made this little speech. And I'd like you to hear it, because that was then, and what he was saying is coming, compared to what you just heard this woman lecturing on.
Hold on, folks. You better buckle your seatbelt. If anybody is watching this film and they think to themselves that they have control of things because currently sex is suppressed and held to be dark and dreary and worthy of being suppressed, sorry, your day is over. You might not understand it, but I can tell you it's over, and the signs are present here and now. What's happened is that this sexophobia, this negativity, this hysteria, this witch hunt dealing with young people expressing their sexuality has been tightened down. It has been screwed so tightly that I can tell you something, young people, it's about to break. And when it breaks, it's going to break suddenly.
So what he was saying, that what's coming is this is going to be accepted, and there's nothing we can do about it. And you think about that as to opposed to what we listened to about this dingbat in Germany lecture about. And it's really scary, because it turns out this creep is partly right. And for whatever reason, there is an onslaught, this thing in the world right now that is attempting to basically devour children. And it's evil. It's an evil thing. And I believe that the recent exposure, the Epstein thing, and then the, Ghislaine Maxwell arrest, I believe that President Trump is behind getting law enforcement to buckle down on this shit and get it taken care of. And I think it's has something. I think that is the reason why. Of course, there's an election coming, but that is the reason why he is under an absolute attack by the media. So say Republicans leaving the party because he's just not good for the country. And everywhere he turns, even the media, this recent interview, he was just attacked. And I think he's by and large responsible for this thing, and I hope it keeps going, and a lot of people are dragged out into the frickin' sunlight like the vampires that they are. But going back to what I said at the beginning of my podcast, this guy who perpetuated the push polling idea, to me there's a lot of connections between not what this guy said, but it is what he said, but I believe it applies to a lot of other things. In politics, at the end of the documentary that I watched that featured Lee Atwater, and this really made me see politics. It was another epiphany I had about how politics is just so dirty and not what it seems to be. At the end of the the documentary, he was on camera, looked into the camera and said, "Winning the office of the presidency of the United States of America has nothing to do with the truth and everything to do with winning." And I believe that that's why the president is under such an attack. And he's trying to do something good. And the topic I discussed most today with this knucklehead in Germany, I think it's another way of push polling. pushing it on us and pushing it on us. Eventually we'll just get tired of hearing it and accept it and ignore it because it becomes normal. We just won't hear it anymore. And I certainly hope that's not true. So pay attention to what you watch, what you listen to, what you're seeing on social media. If you're on Twitter, all of the social media, I don't care if it's Instagram, there are ideas that are being pushed. And just pay attention to how you're being manipulated. And that is all the time we have this week. I'd like to thank the guys from Cinescape Media for hosting my program. I really appreciate it. And then I'd like you to check out cinescape.media and browse their other great programs that they have to offer. And also, I'd like to mention another podcast I've been listening to on a different network. It's called The Paranormal Patriot. Maybe check it out and listen to what he has to say. He's a really good guy. And I will provide a link below for that because he's been very kind to me and given me a lot of insight and helpful tips as far as promoting Cinescape Media as well. So I will be talking to you next week, and have a great week, everybody.